Hello. Hello. Are you able to hear me? Okay. So did you receive the email, like all the video recordings and material? Okay, good. Yeah. So today we are going to start with SAS procedures. So the first procedure, let me open the. In SAS, we do till now we discuss about the data step where we are creating the data step from reading the data from the different files. And now you can modify that and you can manage that, you can manage the different kind of operations we can do at the data level. Now we are going to do the analysis part. Once we get the data, once you created the data set, final data set, what analysis, what procedure you are going to do that, what kind of analysis that you want, you can do that with all these procedures you can discuss it now. So in base SAS, we have number of procedures. So these are the list of SAS procedures that we can use in a base SAS. Okay, so I will cover most of the procedures one by one. Okay, but yeah, there are some procedures which regularly we don't use in a program in real time analysis. So which are the program that we regularly use in a day-to-day life in the programming level? We are going to discussing only those. Okay, so the first procedure that we are going to discussing is append. So append means adding the two data sets. But how you are going to add these two data sets, in horizontal or vertical? So the data set will be ordered one after other side, like not side by side, it's one after other. So it means we just simply use the nothing but a set statement. So whenever we discuss data interleaving, data combined, right, we discussed in the last class. So like same thing we can do with the proc append process. What are the operations? What are the things that we can do with the set statement? Adding the two data sets, we'll also do the same thing in proc append. But it's because this is here, it's will be useful to whenever you need to data append. Even though if the data is the number of columns are not more equal, you can also append it. So these are the two different data sets. Okay. So, but when you combine these two data sets, how it will work? So you can see. So because it y means let's create the data set and try that. So we created the two data sets. Now we are going to use append procedure. So append. Whenever you are going to append, so you need to identify which is the majorly base data set. Means what is the data that you are going to append to that main data set. So you have to specify base equal to base. I'm just using 31 data equal to. You run it. Let's see what exactly the output you are getting. So now when you see this, so variable was not found in the base file. So this particular variable is not found in the base file. So the variable will not be added in the base file. So no appending done because of an analysis listed above. It means there is some extra variable that you are in the second data set that you are appending. So in these type of scenarios, you have to use force. So like you can do like opposite direction, opposite way. Like number of variables are more in the first data set, but if you even though the variables are not there, but it's appending because it will see the missing for those values. But in opposite way, like if the number of variables are less in the base data set, if you are appending the more variables to the base data set, it will not append it. Okay, so this is the way. So to even though if you wanted to append in this type of scenarios, then you have to use a force statement. You are asking forcefully to append it. See that variable is dropped. Means if you specify the force, means forcefully for appending, it will be dropped. Whatever the number of variables in the base data set, those number of variables to be added, remaining will be dropped. We use the force. Means what base is the major first initial data set. How many number of variables are there? Only those number of variables will be picked in the second data set. Yeah. So majorly this is the use of append statement. So here we discuss about the force. That is majorly use of force statement. So remaining base and data, all those are simple sum. This is the only thing that you can do in the prop append. Yeah. So this is only that we use. Now next we'll go to the remaining other procedure called as. So this chart procedure I will discuss when we discuss about the graphical procedures. Next one is the C import. So we'll discuss about the content one. So this is a very important procedure content. So I'll discuss with the compare and the C port when we discuss about the C import. We'll discuss next, okay? But the content one. So the content procedures will provide the list of all the information about the data set. It will provide the complete detailed information about the particular data set. So nothing but if you have a data set in a particular library or in a particular folder and a database, it has information like what is the name of the data set, right? Is there any description is defined in the particular data set? How many number of variables, how many number of columns, and each and every column, how it's created, like what is the type of the data, what is the length, is there any format, is there any informat, like, and also where exactly the data set is located in your system, like when it's modified, is there any indexes, is there any data is sorted, like whatever the information is there related to the particular data set, all those information that you can see in the prop content. Let's see this here. So just we create one data set called one, right? So let's run that. See, when you run the prop content, you can see all kind of information that relate to the data set, variable, everything. Let's see this first one. content processor, what is the name of the data set, what is the type of the data, when it engine, what data means, when it's created, when it's modified, is there any production is there, means when you say production means it's a read production, write production, edit production, like it's password production, any label, in which environment it, in which database it's created, encoding, see, how many number of observation, how many number of variables, is there an indexes created, observation maximum length, is there a number of observations deleted, compressed, sorted. So this is related to the data set level information. Now let's go to the engine. Engine means where exactly the data is located, in which database means we call as, and where exactly is located. And the next one is variable level information. So when you say variable level means, what is the variable name, what is the type, what is the length, what is the order. We have any information like label, format, all the information is there that will provide here. So it means this particular processor is very useful if you are using the Unix SAS. If you are using the Windows directly, we can see the dataset without writing this code also. Right click and go to the properties, whatever the information that we have, all this information that you can see here in the detail level. So whatever the information here, all the details you can see. Column level information, indexes, so indexes, there is no index, right? Password, so is that protection, read access, like all this information that you can see, even though if you don't write the program. But when you're using the Unix environment, you cannot see the dataset right click and properties like that. You have to see the information. If you run the code only, then only you can able to see that information. Okay, so and this information, this particular processor is also very useful. Whenever suppose you got an email from your manager and leader saying that there is a dataset which is in the database, use the dataset and create the report, some kind of report they provided, some logic, business logic they provided, and ask them to create it. But you don't know what kind of columns you have it in the dataset at the table, what kind of information is there, is a numerical variable or character variable, you don't know anything, but only they mention about the dataset name. So if you don't know that, how you can get to know the list of columns? So you have to use the prop content and run the prop content browser up to the data set. You'll get the list of all the columns, and if the data set is very huge or small data set or big data set, based on the number of observation columns, you can get to know that. So if the number of observations are more and the number of columns are more, it means the size of the data set is also very huge. In those cases, you cannot extract it. So you need to extract sample observation around 1000 records and just write the query and create the report. So once everything is good, then you can write complete data set. You can run the report for the complete data set. That's how it will work in the real time. Okay, so blindly you cannot run all the things in a particular complete data set. It's a very huge. So in those type of scenarios, prop content is very useful. Okay, and in our sometime what happening is, like in one more case, this particular process is used to, like suppose you are refreshing, your table is refreshing on daily basis or weekly basis. You want to check if the table is refreshed or not, the data is loaded or not, how you are going to check, right? So if you run the procedure up to that particular data set level, then you will get to know that when the recent modification of the data set, right? If the data modification is recently, so as we expected, then it say that the data is refreshed, it's loaded, some action has been taken on the data set level. Okay, so this also one of the scenario that you can check that, like it's a table is refreshed or not. Yes, we also call SAS engine as a SAS database, like how we are calling Oracle database, right? So SAS database, SAS engine, nothing but. So V9 is a database version. So again, it's not like it's not using the separate space. It's a in generating, but it's within your laptop only. It's taking the system space and running the program. But in Oracle, I think they dedicated some servers, some spaces will be there. But it has it not like anything. It uses your RAM, local RAM, and laptop RAM, and database, everything. It's not like separately allocated to that particular space. Okay, so this is about the proc content processor. So the next processor is copy. Yeah, next one is copy processor. So when you say copy processor, means copying the data set from one location to another location. So these locations may be in anything, like from one database to another database, one database from database to local to database, anything. It means simply copying the information from one location to another location, right? So when you do that manually, that because suppose if you are using the Windows, you can see the controls here, because if you if the data sets are at folder level, you can copy paste it. But when you copy paste manually, the data sets will be corrupted. Okay, so the data set will be corrupted. So you cannot copy paste like that. So you always have to use copy browser to copy the data set from one location to another location. Even though if you have the data set are within the individual folder level. Why I'm saying is like whenever you created any data set, it has some bunch of files backend will also be created. Let's say that suppose if the data set has graphs, like if the data set has some formats, the data set has some catalog, but some related, some macro related programs files. Okay, so if when you if the data set has if there are some indexes that have been created on the data set level, but if you copy paste manually, the interlinked files will not be copied. Okay. So manually, if you go to the outside of the SAS, if you copy paste it, there are 90 to 800 number of chances are more to corrupt those data sets. So always use the copy procedure to copy the data set from one location to another location. Here you can copy all the data set at a time. You can copy whichever the data set you want at a time, or you can export some data set and except those everything you can copy paste it. So there are multiple things you can do that with the proc copy. But always remember that whenever you're, because SAS is only the data set will be open in the SAS only, the SAS software. You cannot open it anywhere. So when you try to open it, it will be corrupted. When once the data is corrupted, it will be cannot run anything. So you'll see the issues. So when you copy paste it, you'll get a lot of issues. So to avoid that one, you have to use proc copy procedure. So whenever you say proc copy, you need to know two things: from which location you're copying from to which location. So whenever you're copying from location, you have to use in equal to. So you have to create a libraries for both the locations before that. So because means both the location means you have to identify by using the libname statement. You have to create the libraries for that particular location. So for copy in equal to and out equal to, from where to where. Okay, then you run it. If you specify the run, it will copy all the files from in location and move and copy to the out location. It will copy all the files that are located in folder Nothing but whatever the library that you are defined. Suppose input, you created library, output, you create a library. So when you run this, all the data, so when you specified here input, output, it means all the data set will be copied from in location to out location. What are the data set that we have? So now let's try this some examples. So here we have the SAS help. So in this location there is a data set called ADO I want to copy this data set from SAS help to work location. So in this SAS help, what is work library. So I want to copy the data set called cell ADOMSG. I'm selected this data set. I want to copy the data set from this location to this location. Just running this. See, copying SAS help this data set to work location. It's mem type data. You can see here. If you go directly to that location and copy it directly manually, then you don't. These indexes will not be copied. These things. There are some indexes as defined in that particular dataset level. Those indexes will not be copied. It will be corrupted. So the dataset will be copied, but whenever you try to do something about the dataset, it will get the error message. So it means always use the SAS procedure to copy the dataset. Because in SAS, there may be some bunch of files will be linked to that particular dataset in the backend. If you want information those, then only it will. So if there's some information is not copied, it automatically corrupted. So this is how you can see. Now let's go back to the work location and see this. So the data has been copied. So what happening is, suppose if the dataset is here, you directly copy Control C, Control paste. It will be good. If you copy like within the SAS, it will be copied everything. So if you do it like manually, if you have Windows SAS, it will be copied because it will access to it using the exist software SAS software, right? So automatically everything will be copied. But if you do outside the SAS, if you try to copy the SAS dataset, it will not be copied everything. That's why I'm saying. Is that clear? Okay. So this is about the copy dataset. Okay. The next one is compare. So in the meaning itself is the compare. What does it mean by compare? Comparing the two things. These what are those things? Like data sets or the variables, what you want to compare. When you compare the two data set once, you need to have both the data set has a common columns. If you have the common column name, then it's easy to compare it. If the column names are different, you cannot compare it. So you can specify which variable to which variable you can compare it, even if the variable names are same. But if you do it at a data set level, so it will compare with the equal number. What is the variable name is same in both the data sets. Yeah, let's take these two data sets. So two data sets. Now I'm going to use the pro compare. So when you say compare, so what is the base data set that you're considering there? We have to use a base equal to 1. So which data set that you're going to use as a compare? CYMPARE compare equal to 2. 1. So when you do this, it compared everything between the two data sets. Everything. So first to compare the data sets level. So this is the data set summary. So first data set is created this time, modified this time, of number of variables, number of observation, the label of the data set. Okay, next variable level summary. Okay, variable summary. So when you do the variable summary, what means? So because in the data set, first data set how many, second data set how many? Is the what are the number of variables are common both the data sets? It means whenever when you say common means the name of the variable name is same. It's not about the values, it's name of the variable. In both the data set, which are the variables are common? Those it means the number of variables in common is 5. So the number of variables in 2 second data set but not in 1 as 1. The number of variables with the conflicting type. Whenever you say conflicting type, it means type of data data type, saying that. And number of variables with different attributes. Different attributes means instead of data type, there are some labels, formats, informats, and those things called as attributes. So if those variables are same or not, those values of those variables. Okay, so this is about the variable level summary. Now common variables with the conflicting type. So here it's saying the different conflicting types, but within the data set level, whenever you can say, maybe the variable name is same, but sometimes variable name is different if the conflict type, data type is different. But sometimes what happens, the variables are same, but we have different data types in both the data sets. It means in the first variable we had character, the same variable in the second data set we have numeric, but the values are same maybe, but the type is different. Okay, so those kind of things. And list of common variable with the different attributes. Whenever you say different attribute means other than that length, other than the type, there is differences are there. Let's see this in the first year. Year variable, the data sets, both the data set, the type and lengths are same, but the label is not is different. It means in the first data set we have the label, but in the second data set we don't have the label. And the second one is also same. Third one is a format. Yep. So is that clear? Is there any questions here? Is everything is understanding? Any questions? Yes, it compares every detail anyway. So, but again, you can limit the number of you can by default when you specify the two data sets, it's compared everything in detail. So you can also specify how you want to compare, only what you want to compare. It means you can limit the output, limit the variables. But by default, if you specify the data set, it's compared everything. We'll discuss that one now. Okay. So now observation summary. So first observations, how many number of observations in common. So till here variable. Here observations. Number of observations common is 4. So in 2 but 1. So this is observation level summary. The next one is differences. So it means differences means the value level differences. See, so in both the data set we have only 4 or 5 observations. So the comparison, the results are different. But here you can see value comparison between the variables. So observation 4 second in base data set it's MD, but in compare data sets MA. It means home state variable is not matching between the two data set at the second observation and fourth observation. Right, in both the data set, the second observation is not matching for this particular home state variable. Similarly, there is observation in grade 1. Grade 1. In both the data set, there is 84 and Y. These are not matching. It means there are two variables and in each variable two records. The values are not matching out of 4. So like these kind of differences also you can see that. But whenever you compare very huge data set has a number of observations, but you won't see all of the differences in the output. By default, the only if you have the 50 or max 20, if you see the 20 observations, the differences, you will see it the first for 20 only. If you have more than that, you cannot see in the output. You have to either, because maybe by sorting the data, by modifying the data, it may be matched. Depending upon how you are going to use the data sets, how much big is and which variable you want. Okay, so when you run the two data set, when you compare the two data sets, you will see this kind of information. But so if you want to compare only so one variable in both the data sets, then you have to use where gr1 with gr1. So it means what it means, it will compare gr1 between first and second data sets. Only one variable will be compared. See, when you compare the variable, it doesn't compare the dataset level, right? So all variables compared have unequal values. See? Okay. So here, whatever the variable, you can specify which variable you want. It doesn't matter what is the variable name here. So when you compare individual variables, you can specify anything. Sometimes what happened, the variable name may be different. So you can specify it, even though if you specify the variable name, the values will be compared in the backend. Okay, so like you can also use this kind of situation things you can do that when you compare the two data sets, like variable level comparison. You can do that. Total data set level, everything. Everything if you want to compare, just use a proc compare. So is it clear? Okay, so it's majorly this compare procedure is majorly used for validating or testing purpose whenever you do the quality QA. Okay, so it means majorly this can be used in a clinical trials. So to compare your created means tester who created it, developer who created those data sets, you want to compare those two data sets. Okay, so it compares each in detail level, right? So they will check that if any issues are there in both the data sets, if both the person has created in the same, use the same logic, or any wrongs, mistakes did that. So in those type of scenarios, majorly, which will be used. Let's compare. Yeah. So this is about the compare. So the next one is C port and C import. So these are the two linked processes. It means these are linked means so you can use only C import after we use the C port, because without C port you cannot use the C import. Okay, but without C import you can use the C port. Nothing but Simple example for these two processes. Zip file. It means if you proxy port nothing but creating the zip file. Proxy import means unzip those zip file. So nothing but you cannot. So how you can use it without create. Suppose if you don't have any zip file, you cannot unzip the file. Similarly, if you don't create any file with the C port, you cannot use the C import. Okay, so this particular process majorly used whenever you migrating the data from one environment to another environment. So whenever you are moving the data from one environment to other environment, or whenever you are copying the data set from Windows to like Unix to mainframes, or mainframes to Unix, like those kind of things. Okay, so if you copy manually or if you copying some other tech and other tools from the SAS datasets, the datasets will be corrupted. Because you can, so if you have the server to server, you can use a proc copy, right? But if it's not a server to server, it's location to location, means some Windows location using the some Unix location. So these processes will be used. So these we call as transport files. Whenever you are going to transport the files, we can use this one. You can see here example. So cport browser imports a transport file that created cport browser. So it's a SAS data set. So first cport. So cport is nothing but C export. So export nothing but creating the multiple SAS data sets into a single file. It means by using the cport, you are creating a single file with the multiple data sets. Okay, so why we need to create a single file? Let's take some example. So you have some different projects, small projects. Each project has some around 5-6 different data sets, output, list file, catalog file, SAS data sets, or all the kind of different information related to the particular project. I want to copy all these data sets, all the information to one other environment because we are migrating. So how you are going to do that? By using the first proxy port, you are creating one zip file. It's not a zip file, it's zip kind of file. And we can keep, because once you select all the files in a particular location, all the data sets related to the SAS one will be created in the zip file format. Okay. Yeah. So once you create all the information, once you create the one single file, then move that particular file in wherever you want it. It means you can copy that particular file to which environment you like. So because if you create it using a Windows environment, you can copy that file to Unix environment by using any FTP tool. So once you copy there, then use the C input browser, you can unzip it. Then all the related information will be extracted and keep it in one particular folder. So in this way, what happened, the information will not be like all the data sets or the files will not be corrupted. So these two processes majorly used in those type of scenarios. Normally, we don't know, but because if the project is not a migration project, so these projects will rarely use it. But let's see this. Okay, let's see the example here. First, we'll go to the C port. So I have the data set in work location now. I'm using as a source. Creating the work file. See, go to the folder. See, work folder is created. You cannot unzip directly here. So we created a file. See, we created a file. Cport begins transporting this file. Air 1, 2. All 4 different files that are there in the work location created a single file called work. So when you say memtype equal to data, so it means only data files has been copied. It is selected. If you don't select it here, you don't specify anything here, everything will be taken care here. Like see, the SAS help, you can see different type of files like SAS datasets, catalog files, views, some indexes, all the different type of files are there. Here I'm requesting only data files. So if you specify the catalog, only catalog files will be selected. But if you don't specify anything, everything will be copied from this particular location. So now we have the transport files created, right? Let's use the C import. Let's use this. Now let's use the C import procedure. So where you want to copy. So we already have the library here. Transport file, which is taking it where you want to see C5D. So go to C5D. See, this data set is there 1, A, 2. See, 8 March to just now. See, there are 4 different data sets copied. So this is how these programs will work. So this majorly used only for the migration point of view, but other than the migration, it's very rarely used these two approaches. So simply one more thing, like how you are going to create a set of SAS related files into one particular folder or file. We can also say that by using these two procedures. How you are going to create set of files in one particular file. So any questions? Okay. So now we discuss about the append, cport, compare, content, copy, and cport. Right. So there is a catalog procedure is there. This particular procedure is very rarely used, but if you want to see the lot of the different catalogs files are there in the particular folder, want to list, copy, or delete. Like whenever, what is mean by catalog? So catalog is nothing but you can see this as help. You can see different catalogs, right? What exactly these catalogs? So these catalogs majorly created whenever it's related to the data set level. Like suppose if you created any format, that particular catalog will be created. If you create any graph, that graph your related catalog will be given separate file or folder. In all the information related to that particular format will be stored in that particular separate folder in the library. Like macros related for macros, for graphs, for formats, and some views. So like anything, some different things are there. All those will be stored. It means suppose if it's a format, if you go to this particular folder, all the different format related will be created here. So to manage all these things, like manage the catalog files from one folder to another folder, copying, deleting, modifying, then we use a proc catalog procedure. But it's very rarely used. It very rarely we use this particular procedure. So calendar, it's not very rarely follow that. Okay. So the next one is correlation, CORR. So this core CORR is a correlation procedure. It's purely statistical procedure. Okay, purely statistical procedure. So this procedure is majorly used to find the relation between the two variables. Find the correlation between the variables. So how this particular procedure will be useful, but I'm not going to take much on this particular procedure. So it's purely statistical procedure. It's majorly used for an analysis. So when majorly used whenever you are going to build any model. So to build the model, you need to use the dependent independent variables. So whenever you say independent variables, you need to identify if the dependent variables are interdependent. So in those type of scenarios, majorly the correlation will be used. So to majorly this correlation will identify the its relation between positive or negative. Suppose if you increase the price of the particular product, right? If you increase the price, the sales will be decreased. Suppose if you decrease the price, the sales will be increased. So that kind of relation, if you want to identify between the variables, then this particular procedure will help you on that to do those kind of analysis. So if you have the if you have the positive relation, means if it's this will be increased, automatically the sales will be increased. If it's decreased, the sales will be decreased, like that. That is positive relation. If negative means if it increase, that will be decreased. Because of this will be useful in majorly in banking sector also, like in the credit card section, to identify the relation between the variables. So this majorly for the statistical point of view, it will be very useful. C port. So this data set I'll take tomorrow. So it will be need more time on there. So 25 to 30 minutes. This will take more time. So this CV2 view and DVC. This will not. This no. We not use it. Yeah, I'll explain this export and import. I'll tell you tomorrow. But now I'll take some other procedure called proc format. So proc format. So format nothing but what is the definition of the format? You remember that? So we discussed about the format, what exactly why we use the format. What's the use of format? Format and in format. In previous class we discussed. No. So change from character to numerical, that is a function. Input function, put functions, right? Those. But format is nothing but it's an so you are going to give some instruction how you are going to write the values. Format. Because you are giving some instructions to this particular SAS program on how you want to write that value and what kind of format that you want, from this format to that format. Suppose you have the number. I want to convert that number into dollar format because you have some amounts in terms of number, but I want to show that amounts as a dollar from a dollar symbol with the comma separated value, comma separated amounts. So it means that in those kind of we'll use the format. So format is usually for writing. In format is nothing but to read the data. Suppose you already have the amounts in the dollar format. Or you want to read the data and create it as a number. Then we used in format. So you have to remember these two mandatory. So to create, like we mentioned, like how you want to write the value. So if the value is like this, I want to show that in a dollar format, then we are using the dollar name. To create that dollar kind of formats, we used for proc format. Nothing but simply, suppose in US we have 50 different states. Each and every state has 2-character code. So this 2-character code is not able to understand everybody. So whenever you are creating the report in the outside to showcase those reports, if you give the 2-letter code, they won't understand it. Not everybody. Right? So you need to give the abbreviation, complete name for that particular state code. So you have to create the format, nothing like how you want to create it. If whenever I see this particular value, like whenever I see if it's an NY, I want to fully display New York. So like that, if all the 50 different states code, if we create and load it and save it into the particular location, whenever so once you create, you can put some name. Suppose once you create this format and give some name of the complete format and save it in location. So once you save that location and wherever you want it, you can call that name and apply to that particular data set or variable, and it will be converted, it will be displayed in that particular format. So not only state codes, anything if you want to create it, you can create it and you save it into the system, and whenever you apply that format to the data set level, it will be showcase what it will display the resultant value. So that's how the proc format will work. Okay, so I'll take some examples in tomorrow and we'll explain about this format. So just I'll give a brief explanation, but it will take some time. So what I'll do is I'll take each and every example, like a couple of examples, and like gender information, like some state code, some different scenarios. I'll take it and we'll explain you and we'll show you that. So this format also, you can create it, you can load it and save it and use it. And also this format can be created from the data set level also. Like suppose you have the data set. I want to create the format from that particular data set and create it. Okay, so these things I will explain in tomorrow. So if you have any questions on today's, just let me know so we can wait tomorrow. Okay. Yeah, thank you. So we'll meet tomorrow at the same time.